up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battery Mates podcast. I am the Sandman Sean. That over there is Dirty Dave. Give him a little wave, Dirty Dave. We are excited to be back. We did miss last week, but it turned out for the best, I think, Dave. So we've had a lot more action over the last week. Got some free agents that are coming off the board. Had a couple of extensions that took place in Braves country. And so how are we feeling about the offseason so far? I know this weather is brutal pretty much everywhere in the country. So I know you've gotten it a little bit worse than I have. I'm a little further south than you. But how's the new year treating Dirty Dave?
Yeah, it's something, that's for sure. It is as you mentioned, the weather has been the story. I live for those who don't know, I live like near Wisconsin, like in Illinois. I'm like right on the border there. So we just recently got a foot of snow. That's 12 inches for those that are listening from Europe. I know we have a lot of European listeners. That is 100 centimeters. And so we're dealing with that. But baseball always seems to warm my heart. So I'm ready to talk about a little ball and think about the summer months that are to come, which of course we know are going to be very successful for the Braves. Or at least we think so anyways. I know I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And so today is almost a holiday in Braves country. So today we are 1 month away from pitchers and catchers reporting for the Atlanta Braves to spring training. So 1 month away from the pitchers and catchers reporting. So that is exciting. A little bit of housekeeping to start off like we always do. If you're not following us on all forms of social media, make sure that you do that. We've got Facebook. We've got Twitter/X. I'll always lead with Twitter just for Dave over there.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you're listening to us on Spotify, we're also over on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube and you don't want to see our handsome faces, you can go over and give us a listen on Spotify. Also, and I almost forgot because this is a new thing, we are on TikTok. So for all you next generation people, go ahead and follow us over on TikTok also. I think it's follow. I don't even know what it is. But go over there and do that, as we will continue to talk Braves baseball all off season and into the 2024 season. So we'll hop right into it, Dave. The biggest move that I think that outside of maybe a Max Fried extension that could have gotten done this offseason has gotten done, and that is the Braves have extended Alex Anthopoulos through the 2031 season. So, Dave, what do you think about the Braves locking up AA through this entire championship window that we seem to find ourselves in right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just phenomenal. I think that when you do that work to build a core like AA has built, you should be allowed to see it out. Now if he makes moves that just suck every other step of the way, then of course things change. But when you do what he's done so far, you build a World Series roster. My favorite verb I use for AA always is cobble. He cobbled together a bullpen, a World Series roster out of nowhere. Built a core that is going to be around for a very long time. You get to see that out, in my opinion. So I thought this was a great move. Honestly, the only worry I had was, does he want to be here until 2031? I mean, he might just be like, guys, this is boring. I've already built the entire roster. Now I'm just extending guys. Maybe I do want to go to a different place where I got a little bit of a challenge. But he doesn't want the challenge. A big day for, of course, the Braves Foundation as they get another contract re-signing to get 1% to. And I love it. I think it's great. I think it's good news for the Braves through 2031. No complaints on my end of things. I know based on our conversations, I don't think you do either. But if you do, this is your time to vent them.
No, not at all. I think, like you said, AA has done just such an exceptional job of putting together this core and putting the Braves in the best position to be as competitive as they can for as long as they can. And so, when you really look at the teams that you would consider contenders right now, I don't know that there's one that has as close to a window as the Braves seem to have right now. And AA has been a huge part of that. And so He's under contract as long as Austin Riley and Michael Harris II. So he's going to get to see this, like you said, barring something catastrophic, over the next 7 years. He's going to get to see this out, this window all the way through to completion. And so there's not anybody else that I would rather have leading the charge for the Braves in the front office than Alex Anthopoulos. So I'm ecstatic with it. I think should be all of Braves country, but there's always those people. So most of Braves country is probably ecstatic with the signing, with the extension. And so that was the big one. Like I said, I think probably the biggest extension that could have happened outside of, Max Fried extension. But the other extension, so the Braves re-signed Chris Sale shortly after trading for him. So, Dave, I know that you weren't as high on the Chris Sale trade as I was, so I'll put you on the spot here. Does the extension and the ramifications of it as far as the way it works financially and things like that, does that make the deal better for you in your eyes? Does it make a little bit more sense extending Chris Sale the way that they did, getting an extra year of team control at only $18 million there in 2026?
No, not really. I'm still exactly where I was at before. It's good that the ownership group gets to save a few dollars this year. Hopefully, they put them to good use and make a trade at the deadline if they need to, using those extra funds they have available now. But ultimately, all it is just when does the owner have to pay Chris Sale? So that doesn't have anything to do with me. And my reasons for not wanting Chris Sale were never a financial move; it was always a baseball move. I'm of the camp that I watch what the Dodgers are doing right now, and they're just spending all this money and deferring all this money. To me, money's made up. I wish my utility companies would listen to that as well and just make me defer that as well, but they haven't listened yet. In the meantime, money's not real, so it's a social construct we've created. So I never make my decision on whether or not I like a move off financial reasons. It's just strictly baseball reasons. The baseball reasons that I didn't enjoy the move at the time are still there, so it's still the same move to me. But I am happy that, they get an extra year of team control. If he works out, you have him longer. If not, you cut bait with him. It's kind of still the same financially and all that for me.
Yeah. I think what it was is it really kind of was a savvy move by AA as far as the financials go. I think that's what he was trying to do. So, I pretty much anytime I talked about it, I referenced Boggy from Nakahoma Nation, another Braves podcast. And he did an excellent job of breaking the deal down. So Sale's extension was a 2-year, $38 million extension with a club option for 26, and that club option is for $18 million. That pays Sale $16 million in 24 and $22 million in 25. With him getting $16 million, the Braves actually pocket $1 million this year off of the Chris Sale trade because the Red Sox sent $17 million over. So the Braves pocket $1 million this year. It gets rid of the deferred money, so there is no deferred money out to 2039, 2040, whatever it was. And it only slightly raises the cash salary in 25. So he had a $20 million option. Now it's $22 million next year. So, it doesn't drastically change next year's money. And then, like you said, if it works out, you've got him for less than, Giolito's making in Boston, as far as AAV goes, over those next 3 years. Because I think it's 19 million AAV, based on the way it plays itself out. So, like I said, they gained that year of control. And I think you have to view it in a little bit as an insurance policy for if Max Fried walks next year. You see that they've gotten Sale, they've gotten some other lefties in the bullpen. We'll touch on these guys a little bit later. But Fried and Minter are both free agents next year. And so you kind of say, okay, is AA kind of hedging the bet a little bit in regards to, if he loses Fried and we lose Minter, we've got a solid lefty in the rotation still. because everybody competing for the fifth rotation spot is a righty, and most of the Braves prospects at the pitching on the pitching side of the ball are righties. And so I think, like I said, I think it makes sense. I like it, but I liked the move. I liked the move initially, so I don't think it drastically changes the move. But I do think if you trust that Chris Sale is going to be healthy, which obviously I think the Braves think that that's what they're getting. I don't think you make that trade if you don't. If you think he's going to be healthy, then Chris Sale for $18 million in 2026 is a steal. And so, $16 million for him this year. I mean, heck, even the $22 million next year is, right around that market level for a pitcher of his status. And he doesn't have to be the ace. He doesn't have to come in and be the guy. Even if Fried walks next year and Morton retires, he still doesn't have to be the guy because we've got Spencer Strider that we're gonna trot out there every fifth day. And so I like it. It doesn't drastically change anything for me, but I do think it was a savvy move by AA, which we're pretty much accustomed to with AA, in regards to making the money go as far as it can. It did bump us up. We've got about $7 million in payroll, like a buffer to that third tax bracket, where we'll lose 10 spots in the draft. So that $7 million can go towards, if we want to fill out any more spots on the roster on the 40-man, or if we do want to make a trade there during the season, we've got that little bit of a buffer there. So outside of that, we have had some signings for the Braves.
Finally, we talk about some free agent signings.
We get some free agent signings. Out of the ones that you saw, which one do you kind of like the most? Is there any that you're like, I don't really like it, or are they all just kind of ho-hum moves as far as you're concerned? I know the one that I think that I like the most, but I'll ask you. We got Huascar Ynoa, the 1 year, that was an ARB settlement, 1 year, $825K. Signed Luis Guillorme, who spent the last 5+ seasons with the Mets, for 1 year, $1.1 million. We also still have a year of team control in 2025 on Guillorme. And then we had Fried and Minter both avoid ARB, and Culberson signed a minor league deal. So we'll get to Culberson in a minute because I'm loving that story, as is most of Braves country.
Yeah.
But, are there any of those signings that you like? Are they just kind of like, this is filling the roster? Kind of what are you thinking as far as those deals go?
Yeah, I actually love the Luis Guillorme signing for what it is. I think it's a really good move. He fills a bunch of holes where you need bodies. You just traded Vaughn Grissom, who was going to be your backup at shortstop for sure. Did you trade Nicky Lopez earlier this offseason? You kind of created holes in order to fill other holes, and now you get one guy to pay $1 million to. 1.1 million. I can't believe he only signed for that much because Guillorme is a solid player. I think I know. I've heard some people call him a quadruple A player, and I don't think I agree with that. I think he's a good enough hitter to say he's a major league player. When you look at it, last year he struggled for sure. He batted .224, couldn't really find playing time. But the year before that, 2022, he played in over 100 games. He had .273 average. Played in 69 games the year before, and was nice. He batted .265 that year. He's not going to provide home runs. He's not going to steal bases for you. He's just going to play solid defense. He's going to be a professional hitter. He's going to work counts. He's going to put the ball in play. And I really like the signing for what it is. No, he's not going to change games. I don't think you'll have a Luis Guillorme game where you look back and say, wow, we won because of him. But he's not going to be a guy to lose you games. He's just going to go out there and, hey, Snit, you want me to play third and bat eighth today? Sounds good. I'll do it. He'll go 1 for 4 and play good defense and move some guys over in those 3 at-bats he doesn't get a hit. And I can't ask for much more out of a guy you're signing just to do exactly that. That's a good move for me. I really like it.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think for me, that's the signing that sticks out. Because what you think about it is he is what Nicky Lopez was.
Right.
And Nicky Lopez got $4 million and some change from the White Sox this offseason. And you save $3 million and you get what Nicky Lopez was, and you get another year of team control next year. So I think overall, excellent signing. It does make me kind of wonder, are we going to see David Fletcher, something done with him? Because we kind of thought he was going to be the utility guy, and now you're probably not carrying two utility infielders on your bench. But Fletcher's due for $8 million this year, I think, or maybe $7 million this year and $8 million next. I don't know, something. 2 years, $15 million or something. I think is what it is. Right, that's a lot of money to just have sit dead in AAA. So it does kind of make me wonder what's going to happen with Fletcher. But I love the Guillorme signing. Obviously the other three ARB settlements. The interesting thing on the Fried and the Minter. This is the first year. This is Fried's fourth ARB year, his last year. But this is the first time that he's not went to arbitration, where it's not been decided by an arbiter. So I think that's interesting, given the fact, you don't want to read too much into it, but I do think it's as good of a sign as you're going to get moving forward that, hey, look, maybe there's a chance that we get to keep Fried around after this year. And then Minter, he is represented by the same agency as Dansby and Freddie. And so you kind of wonder, what's that going to look like for free agency next year? But both of those guys avoid arbitration, and it's one of those things where I always think it's a bad look for teams that can't get together on ARB numbers for guys like Fried and Minter. You saw kind of what happened in Milwaukee last year. I think it was last year where they couldn't come to terms with Burns, right? Burns was the starter that they couldn't come to terms with on the ARB number, and they drug it out to arbitration over like less than $1 million or something like that. And, now they've had no talks of an extension or anything like that. So I think it's a good sign as far as that goes. But the one that I love, that's just a feel-good story, man, is Charlie Culberson going into age 35 season, was the first non-roster invite to spring training, but he is coming in as a pitcher, Dave. Charlie Culberson, utility infielder. Utility player. He plays outfield, plays infield, plays everywhere. He is coming in as a pitcher. And I thought this was interesting because you see position players throw at various times in mop-up moments. But Culberson has a 1.23 ERA and 7 1/3 innings pitched in mop-up spots at the major league level. So, he's got a fastball that tops out 93, 94. He pitched in 4 appearances at Gwinnett last year, 3 2/3 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 5 Ks, and 2 walks. So, it's neat that he's like, look, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm not going to find a meaningful spot as a utility guy anymore. But, hey, let me go recreate myself and see if I can't carve out a role, And, I mean, hey, if he throws 93, 94, throws strikes, even if it's not with Atlanta, who's to say that the Braves don't move him to somewhere, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, somewhere where they can use a guy like that in the bullpen. It's not inexpensive, but he's going to come in, throw strikes, and kind of be that clubhouse guy that Charlie Culberson is. So I love that story. I love it. What are your thoughts on somebody at age 35 season completely changing from a utility, primarily a defensive utility guy, to a relief pitcher in age 35 season?
Yeah, man, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I think it's great. Do I expect Charlie Culberson to pitch meaningful innings for the Atlanta Braves? No, absolutely not. You already touched on that. That's probably not what's going on there. But, yeah, I think it's a fun story. And age isn't going to be as important for him because he doesn't have the wear and tear of a pitcher's arm at 34. He could be a guy who, if he could find a spot somewhere and he actually succeeds as a pitcher, who knows? I mean, maybe he could pitch till he's 40 as a every so often, reliever or whatever it might be. Matt Bush last year went to Texas and helped them make the playoffs, and then didn't get any playing time in the playoffs. But that's another story of a guy who spent a long time as a position player and then was like, well, that's not working. Let me go ahead and be a pitcher now. So the story matches. It definitely works. Fun fact about Culberson, you mentioned his ERA of 1.23. Even more fun than that is that he did give up an earned run in his first ever appearance as a pitcher. So that means that in the previous 7 appearances, which is 6 1/3 innings, he has not given up a run, and he's only given up 5 hits. So you hear those stats, you're like, wow, those are really good for a position player. And then you hear that and you're like, it's actually even better than that somehow. So you just wish him all the best. You hope it works out. Maybe he does throw a few innings for the Braves here and there. Or maybe, like you said, he goes somewhere else and has success. But he's the kind of guy that wherever he goes, you're not going to not root for Charlie Culberson unless you are specifically facing Charlie Culberson. Right. So, I hope he has a lot of success there.
Absolutely. And one of the things, too, that I think, and like you said, I don't know that there's an easier guy to root for than Charlie Culberson. You know, he's been a guy that he'll do whatever is asked of him. You know, he was in the big leagues last year for a little over a month, and he had one plate appearance, and he just did his thing, showed up every day and gave it everything he had, was that guy on the bench, ended up slashing, batting 1,000 OBP. And so like the 1,000 OPS, so it was just kind of a cool thing that he did, but he has over 7 years of major league service time. So if he can carve out a role, like you said, as a middle reliever or as somebody that kind of to mop up innings, you put him in a bullpen somewhere to mop up some innings whenever it's needed. He could find a way, I think it would be really cool for him to find a way to get to that 10 years of service time, which is such a big deal for major league players. Mm-hmm. If he goes as a reliever and gets, 2 3/4 of a year and gets to that 10 years, I think that would be really cool. So
is 10 years where they get that card that gets them into any baseball game they want for life?
I was more talking about the pension, but I mean, they may get that card too. Yeah.
Well, but the thing is that if I was a major league player and I played 10 years, my entire pension would go toward buying tickets to baseball games. So really, that's actually probably more important if we're being honest with ourselves.
Oh yeah, you're probably not wrong. You're probably not wrong. So that would be an exciting thing. Like you said, it's a fun story to go into and watch in spring training. It's kind of one of those things. It gives you a reason to watch spring training for the Braves. You're like, hey, is Culberson going to pitch today? And so it's just one of those cool little things for spring training. But even outside of the Braves, it seems like we're finally seeing some guys sign some contracts, some free agency movement. Teoscar Hernandez went to the Dodgers. So I will start off with that, Dave. Does that acquisition by the Dodgers scare you? Does that propel them past the Braves in your eyes in regards to power rankings type situation going into the season? Or kind of what do you think Hernandez to the Dodgers does? Because it really feels like the National League right now is Atlanta. It runs through Atlanta and LA.
Yeah. And, honestly, I think if you've been following our podcast that I'm not the one that needs to answer that question. I think that's more of a you question. I've been saying really good things about the Dodgers. I still very much like the Braves' chances in a 7-game series against the Dodgers. I like the Braves to still be able to win more games in the regular season than the Dodgers. But they needed a Teoscar Hernandez, and they got him now. So I'm going to turn this question on to you, Sean, because you have been the one saying like, doesn't really matter. Yamamoto won't be that good. I don't care about this, so on and so forth. Does that change in your mind how you view the Dodgers and where they stand compared to the Braves this year?
I mean, I think it gives them a better bat. I think it gives them another bat, which I always said was where they really fell behind the Braves in my eyes. You get past, kind of that 1 through 4 of the Dodgers and their lineup really isn't all that impressive. So does it make the Dodgers better? Absolutely. And so I still think that, like you said, I like the Braves' chances. You put them in a best of 7. I like the Braves' chances, and I think their offense is still better. So does it scare me? Not any more than the Dodgers scared me before. The Dodgers and the Phillies are the 2 scariest teams as far as I'm concerned. And the Philly thing is probably more so due to what's happened the last 2 years in the playoffs than anything. So it makes them better, and I think it makes the most sense for Teoscar Hernandez. He signs a 1-year kind of prove it deal. The Dodgers defer more money. I think it comes down to like a $20.5 million tax hit for the Dodgers this year. But he signs a 1-year deal, gets an opportunity kind of to prove it. And, kind of hope that he gets a longer term contract next year. So I think it makes sense for both sides. The Dodgers needed a bat. The Dodgers needed a corner outfielder, and so it fills a hole, especially with Mookie moving to second full time. So good move by the Dodgers. Good move for Hernandez, and it makes him better. So I'm not going to. I won't crap on the Dodgers today. I'll give them a break this week. So, but outside of that, we've got some other guys that have come off the board. You've got Sean Manaea to the Mets. The Giants signed Jung-Hoo Lee, the outfielder from Korea. They also signed Jordan Hicks, who's going to report as a starting pitcher for the San Francisco Giants. Marcus Stroman went to the Yankees, which is going to be must-watch TV all season, and Twitter is going to be a must-watch for what Stroh does with the Yankees. If he thought the Mets fans were bad, the Yankees fans are going to eat him alive on social media. And then you've got Shoto, who signed with the Cubs on a pretty team-friendly deal, I think. So we're finally seeing some movement. You still haven't heard much as far as Snell, Montgomery, Bellinger. I did see where Dansby, he pulled the "we got to sign Belly before we go into the season." Yeah. And for those of you that don't know or don't remember, he also said that about Freddie before Freddie went to the Dodgers. So for Cubs' sake, let's hope that doesn't strike twice. But kind of out of those deals, Dave, that we've seen come off the board over the last couple of weeks, kind of what are this is a good deal, and what is this kind of like, this might be a head scratcher, this might not be the best deal, kind of where are you at with those free agents and that have signed over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so honestly, I love that Jung-Hoo Lee signing by the Giants. I think he's going to have a ton of success in the majors. When you look at his stats in Korea, he is just consistently a 330-plus hitter. His worst year of his career was just last season. He batted 318. That is the lowest he's ever batted in the KBO. In 2021, he batted 360 with a 438 on-base percentage. He's also one of the best fielders in all of Korea. He doesn't have a ton of pop, but he hit 23 home runs in 2022. He was not showing up on anybody's radar, and then the Giants signed him, and people were like, oh, like that guy's coming over? Wow, okay. So it's kind of under the radar for some reason, but I think that's a really good move. The other Giants move, though, my goodness, Jordan Hicks as a starter? Nobody else could start games for them. They couldn't find anybody else. There's a ton of pitchers available on the block, and they're going after Jordan Hicks, who, was good with Toronto last year, but has started 8 games in his career. Career ERA close to 4 as a reliever, and now they think he's going to be better as a starter, I guess. It's a very surprising move. I don't like it at all for them. But they're a couple moves away from being a really good team again. They won 100 games just a few years ago. So good if they want to keep making bad moves. That's just less teams for the Braves to have to go through in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher for me a little bit, the Hicks deal. But I guess it's also when the starting pitching market is where it's at. You kind of have to say, okay, how can we find ways to, can we take chances on a guy? Because the thing is, realistically, if Hicks doesn't work out as a starter, you throw him back in the bullpen. And, right. He's a decent arm back there. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, just to say he's coming in as a starter is the part that is kind of the head scratcher for me. It'd be one thing to say, hey, we're going to give him an opportunity to compete for a starting spot, sort of like the Braves are doing with Ronaldo Lopez, which we'll get into a little bit more later on. But to say right off the jump, that would be like the Braves signing Lopez and saying he's going to be a starter. And then it's like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the head scratching part to me a little bit. I like the Shoto deal to the Cubs. I think it's a really good deal for both sides, especially when you start looking at the money, the AAV, kind of the, you're not you saw Yamamoto come over, and obviously you knew he was going to be the biggest deal in regards to, a starting pitcher coming over. But you saw the deal that he got, and you start to thinking like, okay, man, this, even Shoto, you're thinking it's probably going to get $100 million, and probably going to get 5 years, $100 million or something in that range. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere around 4 years and like escalators up to 80 million, I think. And so, I think it actually was 4 years, 63 million or something with escalators up to somewhere in there. So, but I do like that. There's an opt out after year 2, I think. And so I just think that's a good move. His introductory press conference was chef's kiss, man. Like, I loved it. Immediate, like, just legend status with the way he opened up his press conference. So
yeah,
I like that move. The Mets are putting together, at least on paper, a rotation that could be decent. Manaea is not a bad get. He was much better the second half of the season last year. And so I think that's an interesting thing. But for me, it's really just, I'm just glad to see movement, man. I'm just glad to see some of these things start, kind of the dominoes falling, so to speak, and getting to that point of like, hey, maybe we're getting closer to that Snell, Montgomery, Belly, those big deals. And so I'm just glad that we've got some movement.
Right.
And I guess we'll see who the next big chip to fall, so to speak, will be. So I'm going to put you on the spot here before we segue into the next segment. Who is going to be the next domino to fall? You had to go out and pick one guy that's going to sign next. That's kind of the big splash signing. Who do you think it's going to be?
I do think it's going to be Bellinger to the Cubs, and the reason why I say that is because I don't think that you say that at the convention if you're Dansby Swanson without like people being like, hey, he's going to be signing soon. Because if you go into your convention and you say, we have to sign this guy before we can think about having success this year, and then you don't sign that guy, that sounds like a problem. That sounds like really bad publicity. So I think that the reason he said that is because like Cubs brass were like, hey, by the way, we're close on getting Cody Bellinger back. So I don't think you say that at that spot if you're not that. So that's what I think happens next. But who knows? As a Boris client, it could be weeks before that happens still, and he might say, no, we're gonna sign with you, but it's gonna, Cody's on vacation, and I got this other guy signing across the country tomorrow, so I'm gonna go do that first, and then I'll get back to you guys. Who knows, right? But I think that's the next domino to fall, personally.
Yeah, and I like you said, I jokingly made this statement, that Dansby kind of did that same thing with Freddie before Freddie went to the Dodgers. But the other side of that coin was Atlanta had somewhere to pivot if they didn't sign Freddie. I don't know that the Cubs have anywhere to go if they don't sign Bellinger. There's no pivot that I don't think that they can make. And so I agree. I think Belly probably comes off the board. The other guy that I think that we look out for, which I think would also be just hilarious based on some of the reports that I'm seeing, is Trevor Bauer to the Astros.
Oh.
The Astros are showing legitimate interest in signing Trevor Bauer. And Bauer was a huge outspoken guy against what the Astros were doing and all the drama with the Astros. And so I just think that would be a hilarious move to see happen. So that would be kind of if I could pick the next one, it would be that one, just because I want to see the fallout, just I like chaos. And so let's get a little bit of chaos with
I can't say I would ever root for Trevor Bauer to sign for anybody. I know why you're doing it, because of the fun and all that stuff, but I would prefer that he never signs with a Major League Baseball team ever again. So that's where I stand on it. Anyways.
Yeah, and I'm honestly shocked that there's any real interest. Like if there is any truth to that report, like I am shocked by it. It's I genuinely would have thought he was never going to pitch in the big leagues again. Just like I don't foresee Julio Urias. I kind of thought that way with him also.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see how that shakes out. But I think Bellinger to the Cubs is probably the single biggest move that a team just has to make if they plan on being competitive.
Yeah.
I can't think of another team out there that like one signing can change them from being competing for the division versus not.
Yeah.
And I think Bellinger is that for the Cubs. So I do think he's probably the next one to come off the board. I think it raises a lot of questions if he doesn't go back to the Cubs as far as why did they pay $8 million for Craig Counsell to let Stroman and Bellinger walk? They went and got Shoto. And so I think that's the next move. So, I think that makes the most sense. So hopefully by next week, one of those big three Boris clients falls off the board. And, we're a month away from from pitchers and catchers reporting for most teams. So I think you're kind of getting down to that nitty gritty. I can't foresee any of those three not being signed to a team before spring training. Now I can spit that out. So I think one of those are going to happen pretty quickly. And we're going to continue to see some movement on the stove as it continues to heat up and get us closer to the baseball season. But if you don't have any more free agency comments, any more commentary on free agency, we are going to go straight into the Sandman Surefire Bet of the Week, one of our 2 weekly segments here. And my bet of the week will be for UFC 297 next Saturday night.
I think, just to be safe, before you get your pick, we do need to put the disclaimer first.
Yes.
So we need to put the disclaimer out there. This is not betting advice. This is just simply what Sean is putting his money into, and I'm also going to put my money into it. And when we both win, you had your chance. But this is not betting advice. And also, if you have a problem with gambling and you're giving your money away, and you're losing too much, please call the hotline. There's resources there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Not gambling advice, not financial advice. And, we say it in jest, but seriously, if you have a problem, call the hotline, get some help. Gambling issue can be a major issue. So we say it in jest and it's a funny thing, but if you have issues, call the hotline. But my bet of the week this week will be for UFC 297. So I have a 5-fight parlay this week. And just to hop right into it, in the main event is Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight title of the world. I'm taking the over-under on rounds is 1.5. That's a 5-round fight scheduled for. I'm going to take the over. I think it's going to go past the 1.5 rounds. That's a -238 favorite. I'm also going to take Mike Malott, money line, -325. Chris Curtis, money line, -175. Brad Katana, money line at -192. And Charles Jourdain, money line at -190. So these are all current lines on DraftKings. Not guaranteeing that's going to be the line if you put this in on Tuesday or Wednesday. Those lines obviously may move, but if you put that in tonight, that's going to be a +577 total odds, where $10 pays out $67.74. So you make yourself $50 on $10 basically, and
sheesh.
Come out.
I'm eating steak.
Steak dinner.
When I win, I'm eating steak. Now
it'll buy you a steak dinner.
Not advice.
Absolutely. Not yeah.
But
so
if I'm eating a prime rib and you're not,
those are my Sandman Surefire Bet of the week. Charles Jourdain money line, Brad Katana money line, Chris Curtis money line, Mike Malott money line, and Strickland versus du Plessis over 1.5 rounds.
Love it.
That takes us right into our other weekly segment. We've got Dirty Dave's Prospect of the Week. Dave, who do we got today?
Well, we got the big fish this week, Mr. Sean. We, all the talk has been about this number 5 spot in the rotation, and one of the names that's coming up is AJ Smith-Shawver. So I thought, as good a time as any to talk about AJ Smith-Shawver on the show here. So AJ, of course, the top prospect in the Braves system. He is the number one guy right now. He is a 21-year-old right-hander. He did get some MLB experience last year. And that's pretty quick because he was a 7th-round pick in 2021. Not often a guy goes from 7th rounder to a year and a half later he is pitching in the majors. So, or 2 years, I should say, later he's pitching in the majors. So he has had a meteoric rise for sure. He did start 5 games last year for the Braves with a 4.26 ERA. For a 21-year-old, that is a good number to put up in 5 starts. He has a really, really good fastball. We saw touches 98 miles per hour. He has a huge slider, definition of a put-away pitch. It touches 92 with a lot of break. Fun fact, he was a quarterback recruit out of high school where he played high school ball with Bobby Witt Jr. He got recruited by Texas Tech to play both sports, actually. And a lot of times you see those guys that have multi-sport options. They start a little bit slower, but once they start taking off, they take off. So AJ Smith-Shawver, now the number one guy in the farm. Probably not for long though, because it's going to be tough to keep him out of the majors, I think, in 2024. And yeah, that's a really brief rundown of AJ Smith-Shawver, a guy who is for sure fighting for that 5th and final spot in the rotation this year, eh?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I took away from Smith-Shawver, so you and I have talked off air. I'm a huge AJ Smith-Shawver fan. I've said on here repeatedly, if he has to be included in the deal for Dylan Cease, I wouldn't have made the deal. That's how high I am on AJ Smith-Shawver. The crazy thing, so he had a 4.26 ERA in 25 innings last year, like you mentioned. Okay, but he had a 183 batting average against. He had a 276 OBP against and a 419 slugging against. So that 4.26 ERA probably is slightly bloated based on the way that guys hit him. The other thing that kind of blew my mind when I really got to looking into it, he started 2023 in high A. So he went from high A to pitching meaningful games down the stretch in Atlanta. So he had 3 games in high A Rome, now the Emperors. He had 2 games in Mississippi for the Mississippi Braves, who are now moving to Columbus, Georgia. And then he had 10 games at Gwinnett. So he pitched 14 innings in Rome, 7 in Mississippi, 41 in Gwinnett, with an 11.5 K per 9 in 2023 down there. He didn't allow a single earned run in 21 innings between high A and double A. And he pitched to around a 4 ERA in Gwinnett in 10 games. At 20 years old. He didn't turn 21 until November. So kid can pitch. The kid can throw. And so, you mentioned him competing for that 5th spot. So Dave, I'm going to put you right on the spot. Who's going to be the 5th starter whenever opening day happens for the Atlanta Braves?
Oh man, you're throwing me that early, huh? Oh boy. No,
usually you're the one asking. Usually you ask me the hard-hitting questions and put me on the spot. So I'm turning the table on you a little bit, and I'm going to put you on it, and you're going to have to tell me who it is, and then we can talk about why.
So I think that Bryce Elder wins the job out of spring training, but I don't think he keeps the job all year.
Interesting. So here's what I will say. So I'll give you. Before I give you my prediction, here's what I will say is for me, the ideal situation. Perfect scenario, Elder wins the job, and he keeps it all year. So we can keep Smith-Shawver and Waldrop in AAA. My secondary ideal scenario, because I want Smith-Shawver and I want Waldrop both to have a full year in AAA where they're not bouncing up and down, going back and forth. They're young kids. So I want both of them to stay in AAA all year. So ideal situation, Elder comes out, wins the job, keeps the job. He does, he's more prepared. He was a AAA opening day starter. He didn't win the job out of spring training last year, and he turned into an all-star, and then he faded down the stretch. So hopefully he is more prepared for that longer MLB season this year, that he wins that job, and we can have Smith-Shawver and Waldrop in AAA. If Elder doesn't, then I want it to be Huascar Ynoa, for the same reason. Give Elder, if Elder can't win it, that gives Elder, Smith-Shawver, and Waldrop time in AAA to figure it out, because those three guys are going to be needed possibly as early as next year to be staples in the rotation. Mm-hmm. Because after this year, you could lose Fried. You're probably most likely losing Fried and Morton, and that leaves you with Strider and Chris Sale, which you don't know the Chris Sale that you're going to get. You don't know what he's going to be. So that leaves you with Spencer Strider, Chris Sale, and 3 question marks in the rotation. And so, ideal world, I think you have to want it to be Ynoa or Elder that wins that spot coming out of spring training.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge Reynaldo Lopez fan as far as it comes to starting, but I think he serves a very good purpose, a very key spot in the bullpen. So I really don't want him to win the job, not because I don't want to see him pitching. I don't want to see him not in the bullpen. I think he has a chance to be very successful in the bullpen. And so to me, I don't want him to win that job for that reason strictly. Right. I think you'll see Bryce Elder do the same thing he did last year. I think he's going to come out really hot this year. I don't know if he's built for a full season until he proves he is, right. Like Spencer Strider first year came up and was good all the way through. And you at no point in his second year were like, well, are the wheels going to start coming off now? But you're going to have that feeling with Bryce Elder all the way through the season until you get to the end of the season and you're like, oh, it didn't happen. Okay, great. So to me, I would like Bryce Elder to keep the job the whole year. But, I don't think you're in a position, knowing that you probably are going to want home field advantage. I don't think you're in a position to where you can risk not bringing up a Smith-Shawver or a Waldrop if they're performing at AAA because of the reason you said. But you're spot on. You want them to be in AAA. It just comes down to, if you need them, you have to go get them. You have to say, well, we'll start the clock a little earlier than we wanted to. That's fine. So, as long as they don't say, well, if we're not going to bring up AJ Smith-Shawver now, we're never going to bring him up. That's kind of the mindset you have to have if you're the Braves, and say, hey, listen, even if they don't win the job out of camp, if we need them in June, they're going to be here in June. So that's the only caution I have.
Yeah, and like I said, that's best case scenario. The thing is, when you look at Smith-Shawver's stuff, I mean, realistically, Waldrop too. Waldrop's just a little bit younger. I mean, Smith-Shawver's 21, so you can't get much younger than that. But Waldrop is a little bit younger. You don't want you can't have Smith-Shawver down there in AAA, pitch into a 2.81 ERA, like a sub-1 WHIP, and just mowing through guys, and have any sort of rotation issues at the major league level and leave them down there. Yeah. You just can't, especially being the Braves. And we talk about all the time, like the window's now, and we've seen AA say, look, if you can play at AAA, and we have a spot for you at the big league level, we're going to bring you up. I don't care how old you are. I don't care anything about anything. If you're producing and you can help the team win, we are going to bring you up. And so I agree. I think that you see that this year. Again, I said that ideal situation, Elder wins the spot, and I hope that is the case. But I think I probably lean towards that going to Smith-Shawver. I think if he comes up and pitches, like you said, he Elder is a pitch to contact pitcher. He is a guy that is not going to strike a ton of guys out.
Right.
So, Elder's. So I just think that you see a lot more of a Strider-esque mentality with Smith-Shawver. And I think you'll see that from him. You got a fastball that touches 98 and an absolute strikeout pitch in this slider. That I think he's going to play in such a way, like I said, even if he doesn't win it out of spring training, he's going to pitch in such a way that you can't keep him in AAA. So I think we see Smith Shawver in that fifth role at some point. But like I said, I think you've got to hope that Elder wins that spot coming out of spring training.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. But I think it's only 20% of the games you have to worry about it. You know,
right.
So even if you make the wrong decision and you correct, I mean, you still have Strider, Fried, Morton, Sale going the other 80% of the games. It's really not as high of an area of a need. And if it was a higher area of need in the eyes of a GM like Alex Anthopoulos, he would have done something about it. He doesn't think he has to. So,
right.
You know, I'm not worried about it either way. I like having the options, and you know, I just want to see what they do in spring training. I'm going to watch every one of their starts very closely in spring training. I know you'll do the same. I know all of Braves country will be doing that, and I'm ready to see what they can bring. You know, you would love to see Huascar, you know, come out and all of a sudden he looks like a superstar. Like, oh wow, that year off, you know, he was able to learn a lot more, or you know, something clicked in that year, and now he's the guy. You know, we're not going to know until spring training, but at the same time, you know, if the fifth starter is not supposed to win every start, so
right.
As long as somebody puts you in a position to win games, you trust the Braves offense can win games with them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's good that we have to worry about that. There's other teams that have to worry about who's their third starter or who's playing third base every day. And we're talking about the fifth starter, and then everyone else is going to, you know, throw fire out of the bullpen.
Right. No, and you're absolutely right. And I was going to touch on that too, that like, yeah, it really kind of is, you know, you always hear that first world problems, you know, but this is kind of the first world problem of the MLB, you know, is we're on here talking about, man, who's going to win the fifth spot in the rotation. You know, we could have been in a much different situation had Morton decided to retire and we don't go get Chris Sale. And now we're saying, okay, who's the guy that's not going to be in the rotation out of those four guys? You know, which is a completely different conversation.
Yeah,
so
it sure is.
You know, we're a little bit spoiled. We're a little bit spoiled here in Braves country and on the Battery Mates podcast. And so it's going to be fun. It's going to give us something to watch for in spring training. Like I said, you're going to tune in and say, okay, what did Smith Shawver do today? What is Waldrop going to do today? You know, what did Elder do today? How did they look today? And so, you know, anything that is exciting. And I love the fact that AA just came out and said, look, that I understand that Bryce was an all-star last year, but that's not his spot. Like, this is open. We are winning now. And so I think, I think that was a huge thing for AA to come out and say in that interview. And just back, look, there's going to be a competition, and the best man out of spring training is going to have that spot. And right. So I'm excited for spring training. I'm excited for it to get here. And so, you know, I guess if there's not anything else that you've got, I think it's about time we take this home. Time to land the ship, so to speak.
No, I know you have a message, and then you're good to go, Sean. We're good to lead us out.
Absolutely. Well, you know, here at the Battery Mates podcast, we love Braves country. You know, and one of our own is going through it a little bit. So we just want to shout out the Bean Eater Buzz podcast and the guy that everybody on Braves Twitter knows is Beans. His daughter is fighting right now, and so she's in the hospital. So we just want Beans to know that, hey, we're thinking about you. We're praying for you. You know, Braves country is behind you. So, you know, I know he has posted on his social medias ways to help them out while Poppy, their daughter, is in the hospital and fighting for her life. So, Beans, the Battery Mates podcast is here behind you. We support you. And we can't wait to hear the recovery story for Poppy when all of this is over. So big shout out to Beans, everything that their family's going through. And that does it for another episode of the Battery Mates podcast. We're going to land this ship. We'll sign this off. We'll see you next week. That over there is Dirty Dave. I'm the Sandman Sean, and we'll see you next week.